Today I want to talk about your identity, especially when it comes to healing. And I am going to talk about a personal example, a very recent personal example from my life to illustrate this point. But first, I am going to have my Greek yogurt with raw honey. And the reason I'm telling you this is because at one point in my life, I would not eat dairy. There was lots of foods I wouldn't eat in my life, and we'll get into that. But I really was convinced that dairy was my issue. Dairy was hurting me. Dairy was causing me physical issues. Dairy was causing me physical pain. Dairy was the enemy, and it's all in your mind. I'm not saying, that dairy can't be a problem or it can't be a trigger food, but it's a trigger food because of your identity. And so now I can eat dairy every single day. I can enjoy this yogurt because I don't believe that this yogurt is hurting me. And so I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to eat this yogurt, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to share with you some personal truth and wisdom that I've learned and that I can see happening in real time over the last few days. And I absolutely want to share this with you. So good morning, it's Lisa with Lisa Heal Yourself. And the reason I led with that yogurt example is because there were years, probably 7 years, where if even a speck of dairy touched a portion of my food, I thought I was gonna break out into the biggest flare and the worst pain syndrome and the worst setback. And I was convinced that I was going to suffer needlessly for a few days, even if just a speck, like a tiny little droplet, landed anywhere on my food. And I want to really have you understand today that I can eat bowls of that yogurt now without the fear. It was never the dairy. It was never the yogurt. It was my thought about it. It was my beliefs. It was the identity that I held that I just don't eat dairy, that I can't eat dairy, that dairy makes me sick, that dairy makes me suffer. It was this identity, and no, this video is not about diet, that kept me sick and kept me away from dairy for at least a minimum of 7 years. And of course, this video is not about dairy, but that's not the only thing that my beliefs kept me away from, kept me stuck, kept me in this sick identity, kept me believing things that weren't true, kept me identifying with somebody who was sick, with somebody who couldn't eat food, with somebody who suffered, with somebody who was chronically ill, with somebody who couldn't do this or couldn't do that, or if I did this, this would happen. I had so many beliefs that made up a chronic illness identity that it kept me from not only a bowl of yogurt, but it kept me from my life. And today I really want to break this down for you. So if you're excited about this video, please go ahead, give it a like, hit the thumbs up. It really helps my channel, and let's get into it. Okay, so I wanted to get a little more comfortable because today I just want to share with you what's been going on with me over the last 10 days. But again, more importantly, this isn't a video about what happened to me over the last 10 days or about what I've been going through, but stick with me because it's about the wisdom and it's about the lesson that I can now share with you that you can then apply to your own life, which is actually the entire point of the video. So stick with me. Okay, so some of you may know that earlier this year, probably at the beginning of the summer, I started a new channel. I started a new channel called Lisa Be Yourself. And it is a channel that I've been thinking about starting for a long time, that I've been wanting to step into for a few years now, and that I finally felt ready and called to start at the beginning of this summer. Now, this channel has nothing really to do with healing. This channel is about identity work. It's about manifestation. It's about stepping into and living your dream life. Okay, so this channel really isn't for people. It's not for you. It's not for you. If you're sick, if you're suffering, if you still have a long way to go with some of these concepts, with some of this work, this is like the end. This is when you're in the golden zone, what I like to call it. This is when you're out of constant suffering. And this is when you're able to really take your life from a place of healing and really create now and be able to step into and live the life of your dreams. And so this concept and this has been really calling to me because this is what I've been doing myself, right, over the last series of years. And aside from the excruciating, unexpected setback that I had last winter, I might have started this channel much sooner. Okay, so you're caught up to speed. So I started this channel, I started to do videos on this channel, I started to help people step into their dream life, to manifest and create the life of their dreams. And I decided I am going to create a program. I'm going to create a program. I'm calling it 10 Days to Your Dream Life. And I am going to teach people and walk them through each of the 10 pillars that I believe that I walked through, that I did this for in order to begin to live my dream life. And I am going to teach it. Having done it myself, I felt qualified to teach the concepts, having understood them from living them, and that it was my intention to begin to make money from this program and from this channel. Now, for those of you who don't know, I have already manifested complete healing. I have already manifested my dream home. I have already manifested my dream life. I have already manifested 2 beautiful children who doctors told me I could never have. I have already manifested a dream partner. I have already manifested so many wonderful things in my life and so many things that I once thought were impossible, that I set out to sell this program. And so when I created this mini program, this 10 Days to Your Dream Life, I set out to launch it over a 10-day period and to strategically launch it with content and shorts and selling, which I've never done. I've never done any sales in my life. It's a soft sell when you just sell it through a piece of content, but yet I've never done anything really like that. I do have a program on this channel, but you know that I don't go around pushing it or shoving it down your throat or selling it. I've just never been that kind of person. I've never been a salesperson. That's far away from the identity of what and who I believe I am. But I decided I'm going to step into this because I actually want to make a living from this channel, from Lisa Be Yourself, and from this program. This is going to be my starting point. And so I decided on a goal in my head, and I said, this might seem like a crazy goal, but I want to manifest a successful launch. And the number value in my head is $10,000. And so I used all my manifestation tools. I used my identity belief. I used everything that I've used to manifest so many things in my life. And I decided that this was going to be a successful launch, that this is who I am now, that I can definitely do sales, that I can put out this piece of content, that I can sustain a 10-day launch, and that I will see $10,000 in my bank account at the end of this launch. So, long story short, it was a long 10 days, right? I worked very hard. I've already put in hours and hours and hours to put content together for the program. And now I was putting in hours to do shorts, to do, pieces of content to sell the program. I started up an Instagram account. I started up a TikTok account. I was trying to manage 3 different platforms. So in a period of 10 days, I put out 2 long form, very good videos, right, on my channel. And I put out a combination of 90 pieces of content, okay? And more if you count the other 2 platforms. So probably across all 3 platforms, managing them, like around 230 pieces of content went out over the 10-day period in the form of shorts and reels and community posts and whatever. I have never done anything like that before. And so it was a lot of work. There was a steep learning curve. I was holding my identity through the whole thing. I was convinced, I was going to manifest the 10K. I was holding my energy. I was doing all of the things. So nothing was happening. no sales were coming in, right? I was holding the energy, I was showing up, I was putting up the content, I was following through with everything I wanted to do in the launch, even though it took effort. I was staying up late. I was probably not doing great for health because I was staying up late. I was looking at the screen too much. I was doing all sorts of things that I never normally would have done in the past because I would have been afraid that that would have caused setback, right? That kinds of intensity, looking at the screen and later nights and not taking breaks and putting this kind of stress on myself would cause me setbacks. But no, I shifted my identity to believe that I don't have setbacks when I do those things anymore. And so I was able to complete this stamina that it took for this 10-day launch where I put out, around 230 pieces of content. And I knew that this was going to be a hard journey because it's a very new channel. I'm very new to that niche. I don't have an audience yet built for it. I have under 200 subscribers on my channel. But yet, even with this small audience, I was holding the identity, I was holding the belief, I was holding the manifestation in my mind that I was going to make $10,000 on this launch. It didn't matter. I've done it before in many areas of my life, and this was going to be no different. The fact that the reality that I had less than 200 subscribers and I didn't have a lot of eyeballs really wasn't an obstacle for me. I was determined and I was going to follow the plan. I was going to hold the new identity and meet the goal. Okay, so long story short, the launch ended last night and I worked incredibly long hours, incredibly hard over this last 10-day period. And I want to share with you my results. And I want to do this because I feel like it is so important that I share this right now. Because when something happens in real time, it's really important to understand it in that moment, because that's where growth and expansion happens. So let me cut to the chase. I made $0. I didn't even make one sale. Now, I was disappointed. I was extremely disappointed. I felt like, what's the point? Maybe I'm just a failure. Maybe I shouldn't be teaching this. If I can't even make my manifestation of the $10,000 over this launch come true, how can I teach it to others? All of the excuses started to come up, and it was really interesting. I allowed them to come up. I allowed myself to feel the disappointment and to just watch all of the limiting beliefs come up like a fountain out of my body. Limiting beliefs that I thought I had crushed and overcome, but just feeling upset, devastated, and like a failure, like just another thing that I failed at, right? These were the words coming out of me last night. Words I have worked hard to overcome, right? Those old beliefs, the old identity, those old chronic illness beliefs that like, I'm a failure. Nothing I do ever works. This isn't meant for me. I can't do this. This is too hard. What's the point? Right? It's not worth it to try this hard. Like, nothing ever works. I can't do it. I'm too dumb. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not capable enough. I'm a fraud. I'm trying to teach something and I didn't even create it myself. So all of these limiting beliefs were really washing over me and they were coming up. And I thought that they were gone. I thought that I had totally broken those limiting beliefs and replaced them with new ones, because that's actually how I did manifest so many things in my life, how I created so much abundance and in my life in so many areas. So I was surprised when all of them came up at once. But I recognized them. I recognized them as the exact same limiting beliefs that were coming up, and now as the version of me whose identity really now is about manifesting and creating and living my highest life and my dream life. The limiting beliefs that were coming up now were the exact same limiting beliefs that I would have when I had a massive crash or a setback, or I tried a protocol that didn't work, or all of those years where I was trying and failing and nothing was working. I would have the exact same beliefs. I can't do this. Nothing's working. Everything I try fails. I'm not smart enough. I'm not, I don't have enough willpower. I'm not special enough. Everything I try fails. Nothing works. I am a failure, right? I'm a victim to circumstances. So all of those beliefs that kept me in my chronic illness identity for all those years, those same exact limiting beliefs came up in my new identity for this launch that failed. Okay, you would think they'd be different beliefs or different limiting beliefs or different voices. They were the exact same ones. The ones that say you can't do this, you shouldn't try, you're a fraud, you're a failure, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, nothing you ever do works. Like all of these things, they were coming up over and over. And I was floored. So I sat in meditation, I listened, I let myself cry, I let myself feel them. The difference, and I want to tell you what the big difference is. And this is what chronic illness taught me. And this is the lesson that will stay with me forever, even when it doesn't relate to healing anymore, but when it relates to any other area of my life. And the lesson is that all of those thoughts, all of those limiting beliefs that come up are simply the mind trying to build resistance between you and what it is that you want, right? Trying to put up excuses, to put up safeguards, to put up safety posts, to try to keep you safe, to try to hold you back, to try to make you quit, to try to keep you where you are. Just puts up limiting belief after limiting belief after limiting belief, which is truly just roadblock after roadblock after roadblock, right? In your way, excuse after excuse, to see if it can get you to stop, right? Its sole purpose is to get you to identify and believe with these thoughts, like to take them on as your own, to wear them as your identity. Because when you wear them as your identity, you don't go beyond where you were. And that's really the job of the nervous system. That's the job of the subconscious. That's the job of the shadow. But I didn't, and I don't believe these thoughts anymore. So watching them come up, like, you can't teach this, you're not good enough, like, you failed, you're a failure, right? The thought over and over all night. I could have sunk into believing that because it's true. I did fail the launch. But the bigger picture is, and the reason I know that I was meant to teach manifestation, the reason why I know I was meant to teach people how to step into their dream life on the same level that I am meant to teach healing, is because while it's true, I did make $0. I did, for all intents and purposes, fail that launch. But I didn't fail, because most people would have quit after day 2, after day 3, after day 5, after day 7, when no sales were coming in and the work was still hard, right? I was still staying up late, when I was still trying, even after I knew in my heart of hearts at a certain point, maybe on day 7, that like, this is unlikely to happen. I'm not going to meet this 10K goal. And not only am I not going to meet the 10K goal, I might make 0. But I never abandoned the identity of the person who was showing up as the 10K a month version of myself from that launch, as that identity. I still did the things as that identity. I still held the belief. And you might be saying, but it didn't work. And my response to you is, it did work. It did work. I just can't see the results yet. And the reason I know this is from healing. Doing all of those protocols and doing all of those things. The entire time I thought I was failing, but I wasn't. There was things happening under the surface. Healing was taking place. Growth was happening. Expansion was happening. Just because healing didn't show up then didn't mean that healing wasn't going to show up at all. And that is the same way I feel about this launch, this failed launch. I held my identity as the 10K version of myself and showed up as myself, as the person who truly believes that that's possible for me. And not only is it possible for me, but that it is already mine. And I continued to show up as that person the entire way through. Now, because I reached the number 0 at the very end, what would happen to most people is that they would let those excuses like you're a failure, you can't do it, you shouldn't be teaching this, all of those things, they would say, you're right. They would take those on as identity beliefs. They would agree with that. And they would let that be the excuse that let them quit, that caused them to identify with the belief that they are a failure and that they can't do it and that nothing ever works for them. And they would revert back to the old identity. But instead, what I did and how I view this as I am still holding the identity of the person who had a successful 10K launch. Because even though I didn't see the dollar amount come back in my account, I did have a successful 10-day launch. I showed up as the person who earned and who has the worth to receive that and who knows that that's life is for them and who knows that they put out a good product and who believes in it and who absolutely knows that that 10K launch is for them. And I showed up as myself all the way through, even though the number didn't show up. And that's where faith comes in. That's where holding the faith comes in. You take the actions, you don't see the results, but you still choose to hold the faith. And what it means is, like, I'm not choosing to hold the faith like, oh, maybe a couple more days and the money will come in. That's not the kind of faith that I'm holding. I'm holding the faith, really I'm holding the identity. I'm not letting my identity slip back into believing that somehow the fact that it didn't show up makes me less than, changes my identity for the worse, allows me to believe excuses, allows me to shrink, allows me to contract, allows me to put roadblocks in between me and the life that I want. So instead, yes, I was disappointed. Yes, I licked my wounds. Yes, I felt like quitting and giving up. But this morning, I've already been out for a 10K walk. I'm back home. I'm totally fine with the results, and I'm ready to start my next program, my next workshop, and launch that hopefully before the end of the year. Whether the number showed up or not, I am the identity. That's what the faith means. It means holding that identity even when you don't see the results. And holding that identity is not faking it or pretending that there is 10K in my bank account when there's not. It means showing up as that version of myself authentically and saying, but that's who I am. So I'm going to keep going on this path, on this trajectory, moving forward because like I am this person because I am. And that compounds and that catches up with you over time. And I know this from healing because my healing journey really started to have forward movement and forward progression when I stopped holding the identity of chronic illness so tightly, right? Like after every protocol failed, or after every inner work that I did failed, or after every, crash that I had. If I had quit, I never would have made it. So it was the faith that it didn't work yet, but that I was going to heal, that I was still going to heal 100%. It was that faith, and not like when I stopped holding on to the identity and claimed the fact that nothing ever works for me and this is too hard and this is too much and I can't do it and I'm not smart enough and I can't figure it out. When I stopped letting that define me and be who I was, that's when I really started to heal, because I was holding a new identity. I was holding new faith. I wasn't actually more healed in that moment, but I was starting to become a new person in that moment. I was starting to build a new identity. I was starting to tear down those beliefs that were keeping me stuck, right? That were keeping me sick, that were used as resistance to put roadblocks in between myself and what I wanted most, which was healing. And so all this to say is that healing has really built a lot of resilience in my life, right? Like, it doesn't even faze me that 10-day launch didn't work. Okay, it fazed me for like a couple of hours, but overall, it doesn't faze me, because years and years and years of healing work and being crushed and lying on the floor and crying and thinking I was dying and that my life was over, and having to pick myself up from rock bottom and not being able to walk and having to crawl from my bed to the bathroom and doing over 1,000 enemas and eating nothing but meat for years on end and doing nothing but juice fasts, right, for months on end, and doing nothing but healing work for a decade of my life, right? And having to pick myself up from the devastation that it wasn't working. And in that devastation, I had to unravel those limiting beliefs that were keeping all of those things from not working, right? I had to undo the identity that had formed and hardened and forged in the fire, right? That nothing worked, that this was too hard, that healing was too hard, right? All of that was built up to protect me, to keep me safe, to help me cope, but none of it was true. And when I did the deep work it took to unravel that, then I realized that I could do hard things, and that even if results didn't come straight away, I could continue to show up for myself. And I started to build belief in myself. I started to build love for myself. I started to see how resilient I truly was. I started to see how strong I was, how capable I was. I started to see and believe different things about myself. I realized after so many years, I could do hard things. I could do the hardest of things. I had done so many hard things, right? Doing a 10-day launch is like nothing in comparison to that, right? Working all those hours, putting out the content, like who cares, right? So I can do that and fail and then not identify with being a failure, because I learned so long ago on my healing journey that just because a protocol doesn't work, or just because something you try doesn't work, doesn't mean that you're a failure. And I learned that the hard way, right? Because that limiting belief was forged in the fire, and I had to break it in that same fire. And the hardest part was breaking those limiting beliefs. But breaking those limiting beliefs taught me everything for how to succeed past healing. Because now I know that I'm resilient. Now I know that I can do hard things. Now I know that failing something doesn't mean I'm a failure. Or that just because something hasn't shown up yet doesn't mean that it's not on its way. And so I just want to make this super clear, right? This is the most important part of this video, is that the results don't get to determine who I am. I determine who I am, right? I determine who I believe I am. The results are meaningless. The results are just the mirror. The results show up in time as the evidence, about the true belief that I hold about myself. And so it's not about the money, right? It's who I know I am. It's who I know and who I believe I am. That's what makes a successful launch, right? It's the identity. It's not the results. So I know that this has been a long video, and I hope that this example has shed some wisdom for you on healing, because your identity, your beliefs, all of the limiting beliefs that you unconsciously form when you're in chronic illness as a method of self-protection, right? As a way to keep yourself coping, as a way to hold yourself together, as a way to protect yourself from the hurt, from the suffering, from the disappointment, from the pain, right? All of that. I know why those limiting beliefs are there, but it's not until we begin to unravel them, to break them, to challenge them, to continue to show up even through all of the resistance, to continue to push forward through the resistance, and to continue to one day start to see that those are just beliefs, that those are just thoughts from the mind, and that none of them are true. And when you seriously begin to realize that none of them are true, none of the excuses that you're holding on to are true, none of the things, as real as they seem, are even true. It's just your perception of it. It's just the identity that you're holding. It's just the belief that you're allowing yourself to believe, because any excuse that you let get in between you and the thing that you want, any excuse that you let hold you back from reaching that, is a limiting belief that isn't even true. It's just resistance trying to keep you stuck, trying to keep you safe from the disappointment that you are going to feel if you fail. And when you realize that you can feel that disappointment without identifying as being a failure, then you can see that all of those limiting beliefs were not even real. I really have a lot more to say. I really, really want to do a video now on resistance and breaking resistance, because I feel like it's so important. So I may do that next. But for today, I just want you to see how limiting beliefs are going to show up through your entire life, through this healing journey and beyond. But it's our identification with them. Whether we let these beliefs become true for us, right? The fact that I didn't make $10,000 is a true statement. But what's not true is that I am not the 10K version of myself. That is true. I identify with that person. Whereas before, I wouldn't have been able to. I wouldn't have been able to hold that identity, because all I would have been able to see is the reality of the failure, not the growth and the expansion of the person and the beliefs and the identity of the person who it took to get there, and hold on to that. So I hope that this video has helped you. I hope that you can see how this relates to healing. And I hope you can see that even though we need to heal the body, yes, we need to heal the mind and the heart. We need to heal the soul. We need to heal on all four quadrants. Although this is true, mindset work, belief work, identity work, it is the basis and the foundation of carrying you through the journey, because your journey ends where your limiting beliefs start. And so in order for your journey to go upward, in order for you to keep growing and expanding and pushing through the stuck space that you are now, we have to begin to break through resistance, and we have to begin to identify with the next level version of ourselves in order to carry us through the entire healing journey. That's what growth, that's what expansion, that's what transformation is. And so I hope that you received value from this video today. If you did, please give it a like, please subscribe, please share it, please leave a comment, whatever you can do to help the algorithm, help this channel grow. And go ahead and watch this video on beliefs. It's a great one, and I am going to come back and do an entire video on resistance, maybe a teaching video, because I think it is so important. I am sending you all my love, and I will see you in the next video.